I've got to tell you that in that way too long introduction, my friend Jennifer still managed to hurt my feelings. She skipped the thing in my career that I'm the proudest of. I'm actually the guy who invented silly putty. Some of you look skeptical. Log on to Wikipedia, look it up. I typed it in the room before I came down. It's got to be true. It's on the internet, right? See, that's kind of the world we're in right now, is that the amount of stuff that people are believing is unreal. I am convinced. Well, let me back up. You've heard of the Dark Ages. That phrase in the middle centuries was because of the lack of understanding of science and basic issues and sort of an embracing of stuff that had no basis in reality. But most of what happened in the Dark Ages was a product of ignorance. I am convinced that in the future, historians are going to look back and they won't call this the Dark Ages, they will call this the stupid and proud of it ages. Because the reality is we've got so many people embracing stupid stuff. And we couple that with an environment in which it has become sport to abuse public servants. It's become sport. There are people in your community whose life is given meaning by sitting in their mother's basement at 50 years old and being a keyboard warrior cooking up insane stuff that he gets gullible people to believe. And a whole bunch of that is false and abusive stuff in your community. And a whole lot of that is targeted at employees at every level. I spent about 20 years as a city manager, and throughout that period as a city manager, it always was popular to abuse the city manager. But now what's happened is even your frontline employees are getting that abuse. And in the current environment, you can begin to feel helpless and hopeless and feeling like throwing in the towel because it's just so hard to keep on keeping on. And it's easy to fall into a sense of desperation that says, this is going to do nothing but go downhill from here, and I never thought it could get as far downhill as it already is. I want to give you a little bit of hope. I want you to flash back with me for a moment to the turn of the last century, when the council-manager form of government was founded. I was wandering through a bookstore in Fredericksburg. For those of you who are not from Texas, it's a cool little historic community in central Texas. And I stumbled across a book called The City Manager, A New Profession, written in 1915. And I want to share with you now a quote from the introduction to that book, because I think it speaks to us today. Put that slide up, if you will. City government is experiencing a civic revolution. We have run suddenly upon a novel age where tried formulas are nil, where old landmarks are transformed into strange beacon lights, and the new anchorage is yet afar off. Revolution in municipal government is but one of our ventures into the virgin land of untried things. the seeking of the truer, the cleaner, and the finer, of the less wasteful and more efficient is the advertisement of our national restlessness. The failure of the old has stung our pride into a pilgrimage to find something newer, nobler, and more satisfying than that which the old government could give. With its incompetence, its sloth, its extravagance. From this genesis, the new order sprang. The city manager plan is a part of this more modern trend of thought. What I want you to understand is, at that point in history, the council manager form of government was created as a way to turn around the dysfunction of government. At that point in history, it was a point of great misogyny, great racism, great corruption, great political bosses. And when you understand the roots of our profession, you begin to understand that we're just bit players in a much bigger play that is so much more important than each of us. But we've got to understand that the challenges that were faced at the founding of professional management for local government were amazingly similar to what we see rising up today. Unbelievable similarity. And what I want you to understand is that the sense of servant leadership from the very founding of local government professionalism was all about servant leadership. The principles of servant leadership are so intertwined and so integrated and so much a part of the heart of a true public servant. And what we've got to do is recognize, and we've got to re-engage and re-grasp that sense of a reformist spirit that was at the founding of our profession. And lest you think it is worse now, in the early 30s, one of the first big cities to adopt a council manager form of government was Kansas City, Missouri. And a guy named Perry Cookingham was the city manager. And the group that he was fighting to try and overcome the corruption was not the old codgers that gather at your Dairy Queen on the morning after council elections and cook up all of the conspiracy theories. This was the political machine that literally played one of the most profoundly significant parts in making Harry Truman president. This was not the Dairy Queen gang. And you stop and think what it took to stand against that, and I don't have time today to go into all of the corruption, but the corruption was intense and widespread, and it was all about political bosses and pursuit of power and pursuit of money, and zero about the public interest. And it was local government professionals, city managers, that transformed America. I don't want you to miss the significance of the role you play in where we stand today in needing professional management in our communities to transform America again. We are unbelievably broken as a nation, but healing is not going to come out of Washington. And healing is not going to come out of your state house. Healing will only happen if we in local government begin to take the responsibility for transforming our communities into an environment that once again cares about the public good. And it's a hard stream to swim. And one of the things that happens is that we lose perspective sometimes of the significance of our role and the significance of the lot of our employees' roles. We tend to think, oh, that's for somebody else that's in a higher profile position. That's for somebody else that has this power or that power. And what we've got to understand is that in local government, the most mundane things we do profoundly affect our communities. The most routine, boring, run-of-the-mill things we do have profound impacts on our communities, on quality of life and on economic vitality. Think for just a moment. If your sewer plant shut down today, you will literally be a ghost town in 48 hours. Literally, not figuratively. But we do a terrible job in general of connecting the dots for our colleagues and our employees and our elected officials and our communities of how profoundly significant the routine and the mundane is to impacting our citizens. Part of the role of servant leaders is to actually take the responsibility for connecting those dots and inspiring in our colleagues, our friends, our fellow citizens, our family members, our employees, that sense of understanding how profoundly significant what we are doing is. Last Father's Day, my son gave me a book for Father's Day. The book's title is The Invisible City, and it was an outgrowth of a podcast the guy named Roman Mars does that I love the podcast. His podcast is all about design theory and the invisible factors in design. What led us to have things operate the way they are. And it's always stories of the mundane. And my son got me this book because he knew I loved the podcast, and this one overtly is focused on cities. I'd strongly recommend it. The Invisible City. And here's the inscription that Austin wrote in the book. This book changed my perspective on cities, design, and SGR's place in the world. But it also convinced me that the overwhelming weight of human effort is directed towards making my world and life more beautiful, efficient, and safe. When we start to notice the values and decisions and creativity behind the mundane, our world is re-enchanted and less lonely. This book is a testament to the work you have devoted your life to. Now, he wrote the inscription to me, but it's about you. All of you in this room have dedicated your life to the work of making your communities more beautiful, efficient, and safe. And you've done it through the values and decisions and creativity behind the mundane. It's not the flashy stuff. Building culture is not the flashy stuff. It's all about the relationships. It's all about how we treat people. And in today's world, it takes incredible courage to treat people the way I want to be known for treating people instead of treating them the way they deserve. We've got to own the responsibility with our employees of helping them connect the dots of the profound contribution they make at every level of the organization, and of their duty to walk the talk of authentic servant leadership in your organization, in your communities, among their friends, with their family, because servant leadership is the only value system that is going to heal our nation, and we desperately need to be healed. I cannot tell you how thrilled I am that you are here with us today as we struggle to keep trying to take one step in front of the other out to change the world. I'm glad we're all on the transition team together. Thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful conference.